Something important is happening this July, and let's talk about it because it's getting closer and it's the unfolding of these outer planet sextiles and what they mean for us and our creative journey and our healing journey and our creative process, the process of change, how we bring about the changes we want to see. I'm Marina Orms. So, what I'm talking about is the sextile from Neptune to Pluto and Uranus to Neptune. And this configuration, this outer planet double sextile, trine, triangle, mini trine, whatever you want to call it, is with us from 2024 through 2029. It goes in and out of exact, and each year it has a point at which it comes to its closest approach for that year. And then kind of the planets kind of separate a little bit from the exact alignment, and then the next year they move back into it. So we are now in year 2 because it really began, well, year 3 because it really began in 2024, but in 2025 and 2026 we have the closest approach where the planets come together within half a degree of an exact double sextile. And what is so fascinating to me, I'm a little bit of an astrology geek, granted, but what's so fascinating to me is how the planet Neptune is in its waxing sextile to Pluto, and the planet Uranus, the next slower moving planet coming in from the outer edge of the solar system, is in its waxing sextile to Neptune and in its waxing trine to Pluto. So all of these outer planet energies, all of these big picture cycles, big picture cycles. Pluto and Neptune have a 500-year cycle, and Uranus with each other. And then Uranus has an 84-year cycle. So it kind of, relatively kind of zips around and meets up with these two planets and says, let me help you out a little bit here. So first of all, Neptune and Pluto have been in a sextile since the 1940s-ish. And so because of where they are in the solar system, and the fact that they both have elliptical orbits, the orbit of Neptune actually is at one point is farther than the orbit of Pluto. So it just means that even though they have a 500-year cycle, they can spend 100 years in the same relationship to each other and traveling together, basically in that 60-degree sextile, traveling together through the zodiac. So that can happen. But so what a sextile means is it is the stage of the unfolding cycle between two planets where you just begin to get a glimpse of possibility. You see what lies ahead. In the moon cycle, it's when you just see that waxing crescent. So the moon is growing. It's just beginning, right? It's at its beginning. And you see that glimpse, that promise of what lies ahead when the full moon is fully illuminated. And so that is what we are seeing. At the new moon, you plant the seeds, right? It begins the cycle. It's a great time for setting intentions because this is about what you want to see come to fruition. But of course, at the new moon, you don't know yet. That full moon isn't here yet. In fact, it's completely dark. So what you're planting the seeds of is something that is just your hopes and wishes at that point, right? It hasn't manifested yet. And so when Neptune and Pluto were conjunct, it would be the seed planting of their cycle together. So the coming together of Neptune, the planet of dreams and imagination and spirituality and connecting to the divine, coming together with Pluto, the planet of power and truth and transformation. So, how we carry out the promise of our dreams and our hopes and the plant the seeds of empowerment of those dreams and hopes and visions and imagination for the future. So Neptune is at that waxing sextile to Pluto. They had their conjunction back in the 1880s, I think. So back in the 1800s, and anyway, now now they're at that first 60 degrees of separation. So it took that long. But the point is that the waxing sextile is the vision of what is to come. So it's that promise of what lies ahead related to our spirituality, our stories, our mythology, our dreams, and how the power of that is coming into being through our mythology and our dreams. So we're in a visionary waxing sextile with that cycle. And then you have Uranus, the next planet in, creating also now a waxing sextile to Neptune. And Uranus and Neptune had their conjunction in 1992 to 1993. So that was the seed of their cycle. And Uranus, being the planet of consciousness, of higher thinking, of technology and intelligence, human intelligence, artificial intelligence, all of it, around the time of the beginning of the internet and email and cell phones and, you know, shifts in how we connect with each other. Anyway, that was back in the early 90s. Now they are at their waxing sextile saying, here is the vision, the hope, and the promise of this cycle. So we have the vision and the hope and the promise of Uranus speaking to Neptune to say, I'm going to bring the technology, the shifts in thinking, the shifts in communication, the new ideas, the new possibilities that are going to make this hope and dream and vision for the future possible. So we're getting just that first glimpse of what that could be. So you have these very creative energies of Neptune in a sextile to Pluto, Uranus in a sextile to Neptune, and that means that Uranus is in a trine to Pluto. So a trine is 120 degrees. And again, these are all still at the beginning of their cycle. In the case of the trine, it's not at the very beginning. But it's still in that waxing half of the cycle. We haven't yet reached the opposition, which is like the full moon. So with the Uranus-Pluto cycle, we go back to the 1960s. And that whole decade had that conjunction that, as a really defining feature of the 1960s. So the conjunction of Uranus and Pluto in the mid-60s, that was the seed planting of Uranus, shifts in consciousness, new thinking, new information, new communication, new ideas, ideals related to power, Pluto, truth. And so much about the 1960s that was so potent as that seed time of imagining peace and love, imagining a better world, imagining healing of oppression, of all the isms, and how just the peace and love vibe of how do we get along together and treat one another fairly and equally, and that promise of the Uranus ideals. So we have creative, visionary, supportive, creative possibilities with all of these, with all of the outer planets, which all speak to our most deep truth, our inner selves, our inner lives, what is most important to us in terms of our truth, our spirituality, our soul's needs, our higher thinking, our consciousness, all of it. is now in this creative visionary phase. All of them, not just one, but all of them are in this creative visionary phase together at the same time. And so one of the guest speakers that I had on my Emergence series was Sarah El-Harar. And I remember her saying this was so potent. And you might have seen the clip of it where she says, we have Pluto, higher power, coming together with Neptune, higher love, coming together with Uranus, higher consciousness, all working together as a team to imagine what the world could be like. So that is this waxing double sextile. It began with all three planets in Pluto was in Capricorn, Neptune was in Pisces, and Uranus was in Taurus. So it began with the three planets in Earth and water signs. And as now all three planets have moved fully into air and fire signs instead of earth and water, we now have Pluto in Aquarius, Neptune in Aries, Uranus in Gemini. So we now have not only this profound energy of visionary support, promise, hope for the future, creative, open doors, infinite possibility, awakening, all of that coming together with now the energy of air and fire. So fire is profoundly creative. It's that spark that can spread like a wildfire. And we also have the energy of air, which is communication, information. And so, of course, now you see themes of artificial intelligence and computers and technology and the ways that that can be used inappropriately. We have to have the appropriate boundaries and containers for that technology so that we use it ethically and appropriately. And the themes that we are looking at that could, that the themes that feel doomsday-ish related to climate change, global rise of authoritarianism, and you name it, right? All these awful things. So what we've got heading into this summer is the air energy, the fire energy, the three planets in this visionary open door invitation possibility phase. And of course, what we do with that is up to us, because that energy of support is going to support whatever is what we choose, right? So if we are sitting around worrying about things that are going wrong in the world, we're in that pressure cooker, right? Where things look dark, where things look grim, where we feel like we don't have control, because it's not control that we need, it's power. And when we remember that we have power to do things differently, when we have power to be involved creatively, to participate in shaping things the way we want to see them, when we remember our power, when we find our power, when we cultivate that power, that's when we can use this profoundly, powerfully creative energy to create the new ideas, the new solutions, the new possibilities, the innovations, the totally new ways of doing things that we would not have figured out had we not had the amount of pressure from things falling apart. So in other words, here we are heading into July 2026. Between July 18th and July 22nd is when we have not only those three planets coming within half a degree of exact of these waxing sextiles and trine, but we also have this year, 2026. Well, first of all, we had Saturn joining Neptune. That's a whole nother story. And I've I've shared about that. I will probably talk about it again. But we also have in July of 2026, we have Jupiter. Jupiter at 4 degrees Leo, creating another sextile. So a sextile from Uranus to Jupiter. So we have 60 degrees of separation between Pluto and Neptune, Neptune and Uranus, Uranus and Jupiter. And if you can imagine going around a circle, you go 60 degrees is 1/6 of the circle, and then the next 1/6 of that circle is another sextile, and then the next 1/6 of that circle is 3/6 of the circle, which is halfway around the circle, which is an opposition. So Pluto is 180 degrees in an opposition to Pluto. That makes a cradle formation with 1, 2, 3 sextiles. So triple sextile, 2 trines, an opposition. Anyway, it's called a cradle, and it adds a little bit more magic and potency. So we are heading right now, the planets are getting closer and closer into where they will be within half a degree of this exact. So they're within a couple of degrees right now as we speak of this exact waxing double sextile. Jupiter's not there yet, but the double sextile with the 3 outer planets is there. We also did have Saturn joining Neptune at the apex of this triangle in February 20th of 2026. So that was another piece. So there's 2 things that even further activate this double waxing sextile in 2026 this year. So it lasts from 2024 through 2029, but 2026 is the year when we have both Saturn and Jupiter joining the alignment to make it even more potent and powerful and magic. So we can think about, even as we head into July, head toward that potent moment, set of moments in July, and we will have the moon, jumping in there as well. So as we head into July, we can really take stock, take a deep breath, acknowledge that what we are doing is hard. We don't have a guidebook for where we are going. We don't know what it's going to look like or how it will unfold. We certainly don't know the outcome. And that is because we can't know the outcome, because the outcome doesn't exist. It doesn't exist because we haven't created it yet. And so it doesn't come into being until we make a whole bunch of decisions. And it's, of course, not one outcome. It's a process, right? It's a process that has different outcomes at different stages. But in that process and in those stages, we are making decisions. And all of those little micro decisions, personal decisions, collective decisions, all those decisions are what create the outcomes we end up moving through. So that means the decisions that you make matter. And your process matters, and what you do and how you show up and how you treat yourself and how you treat your neighbors, all of that matters. It's big. It's every decision you make has this potency. It doesn't mean you should feel bad or guilty or like worried that all this responsibility is on you. It's more like you make a decision and you get to go, wait a minute, was that the best decision I could have made? I don't know. And if it doesn't feel like maybe there's a better decision you could make, you get another chance. That's the magic of how this works. Like, you get to keep reevaluating. You get to keep making more decisions because every decision matters. So the ones you made in the past, they're gone. That's not what's relevant. It's not what's relevant is the decisions you're making today and tomorrow and next week and you can support yourself to best make those decisions. So, very exciting. And hopefully that gives you a little more of a sense of why this is so important and how we're heading into this tightening of the energy, coming into a more magical kind of alignment, a more synchronistic and supportive alignment. I wrote about this alignment, and my article was published in the Evolving Astrologer. So I'm going to put a link to that in the description for this video. I'm so honored that that article was also chosen for publication on astro.com. So you can also read it there. Super excited to be sharing this information and to be sharing it with you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your support and subscribing to this YouTube channel. And I have more. You can work with me at transformationalastrology.com, where you can grab a free account and read free content that I post there. You can also upgrade and join my monthly program with guided meditations to help you work with each moon cycle as we go through this incredible time of potential and possibility and creative opening. So that's at transformationalastrology.com. I'm here every day with astrology for unshakable self-care, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.